Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Vorse, beginning to wrap up this discussion about why homosexual activism is making such headway in the Catholic Church, in a phrase, because it's allowed to make headway. One area we haven't really touched on in much depth, but is very significant, is the lecture circuit or the speakers circuit. There are dozens and dozens of conferences that go on with regularity all over the United States, Europe, Canada, Australia, whose topics are often about ways to discredit church teaching, challenge church teaching, and ignore church teaching, confusing the faithful about church teaching. And unsurprisingly, these conferences often have as their theme something to do with sexuality. Who sponsors the conferences and puts them on is one topic. We've actually talked about that earlier this week. But who is actually doing the speaking at these conferences is another piece of the puzzle. These speakers are making their reputations by demolishing the church while at the same time professing a love for the church. They are distorters and they are liars. And as we have seen continually, they are allowed to prance around and hold up their diplomas from Oxford and Yale Divinity School and Union Theological Seminary and so forth as proof that they are smarter than God and should have the final word. They wrap their treachery and heresy up in smarmy-sounding platitudes like rethinking, as in rethinking authority as a topic of a conference, or new approaches, as in new approaches to the God of salvation. Wow, these people must be very, very intelligent, so gifted, so blessed with the brains that are very, very smart. One such fellow is Paul Lakeland, a former Jesuit, go figure, who has built quite the reputation for himself. Now, if all these types of people did was just sit around and quietly conspire with each other in some corner and rip church teaching apart in private, that would be bad enough. But Lakeland and people like him spread their toxic theology, if you can call it that, to the population at large through the vast medium of electronic communications and foisted on an unsuspecting and largely theologically naive populace. For example, Lakeland has just published an article on the lefty website, the Huffington Post, essentially saying the church's sexual teachings are archaic, and they're mean, and they're out of touch, and of course, they need to be changed. But it didn't stay just on the Huffington Post. It's also in the morning edition of the Washington Post newspaper. From there, it gets picked up and spread around the internet like the virus that it really is. Lakeland and others use this publicity to boost their credentials as speakers on what could easily be called the rebellion circuit, where they go around on Catholic property like universities and diocesan conferences, fomenting rebellion and confusion among the faithful. Lakeland has come out, as a matter of fact, and supported another theologian who has been condemned by the Vatican. But the larger point is this: most of this craziness is being proposed against the church's sexual teaching, and the most popular topic in this regard is how the church needs to change with regard to homosexuality. But while the Pope and some congregations at the Vatican put out clarifications and judgments about such teachings, they are often ignored and not even given the light of day when it comes to getting the message to those who need it the most, the massive numbers of ill-informed Catholic laity. And why is this? Many dioceses have offices in their chanceries which are dedicated to LGBT, that's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered concerns. Sometimes they are standalone departments. Other times they are lumped into a larger group of offices or departments with innocuous-sounding names like the Human Justice Department, or Pastoral Care for the Marginalized Department, or some other noble-sounding endeavor. But these activities are anything but noble. The last thing a person with same-sex attraction will find at practically any of these diocesan offices is the truth. They will be directed to conferences where they will end up being more confused after listening to a stable of heretics who, politely, and with an air of erudition, of course, lie and distort church teaching. They will be given literature, if it accurately portrays the faith, will be accompanied by different literature that does the opposite. When they go to the church, meaning the establishment bureaucracy, they will hear and be told everything except the truth. They will see columns by the hundreds written by dozens of Catholic scholars dismantling the faith. They will encounter various priests who allow these kinds of activities at their parish or on their campuses, and will all appear as though Rome is wrong and needs to catch up to the latest in theological enlightenment. And this will go on all day, day after day, month after month, decade after decade, with nothing but an occasional press release or statement by a bishop here or there, buried on a never-viewed website or poorly read diocesan newspaper. And souls suffer because of it. We hear the call all the time about Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden being allowed to receive Holy Communion with their support and promotion of abortion. What about these scholars, so-called scholars, who are too clever by half, being given free rein to attend Catholic conferences and publish books and articles and be on radio and TV interviews, being allowed to pass themselves off as Catholic? At the end of the day, the Church is divinely instituted and organized with bishops as the shepherds and guardians of the truth. If they aren't shepherding and guarding, then they share in the loss of these souls. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.
Please help us keep delivering these kinds of messages that so desperately need to be heard and acted on. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber. Become immersed in the faith established by Jesus Christ. The Catholic Church is the only hope against evil because that is its God-given mission. As our Lord said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Join RealCatholicTV.com today as a premium subscriber and come to learn and love Christ more deeply.